Yo, what is good, everybody? Welcome back to the Fiction Court Podcast. If you're still crying in the comments about Batman winning last week, keep crying. My court, my rules. But today we are moving into the heavyweight division, the I can move a planet with my pinky type of guys. I've been looking forward to this one since I started the channel. Two titans of the flying brick archetype. In one corner, the Blueprint, a man who has more versions than I have pairs of shoes. The Man of Steel, Superman.
It's an honor to be here, host, but I still see no reason making this a brawl.
Tell that to the guy sitting across from you, Clark. Because in the other corner, we have the Grand Regent of the Viltrumite Empire, a man who led a galactic conquest for thousands of years, the most lethal warrior in the entire invincible universe, Grand Regent Thragg.
Yeah, you brought me here to talk. A waste of breath. This man wears a cape like a child. He speaks of truth. But in my empire, the only truth is the strength of your hands and the blood you leave behind.
Yeah, this is exactly what I signed up for. Okay, ground rules. For this fight, Superman's feats come strictly from animation. No comics to keep this as fair as possible. No interruptions. Thragg, you go first. Lay out your case. Tell this court why you are the apex predator of the multiverse. Then, Superman, you bring your receipts. And after that, I step in with the math, the physics, running all your points through thorough analysis, and then my final verdict. Nobody leaves Fiction Court without being measured. Thragg, the floor and the galaxy is yours.
You want to know who I am before we begin? Good. You should know exactly what you are dealing with. I was not born the way your heroes are born. No accident, no experiment, no tragedy that gave me purpose. I was conceived through eugenics, selective breeding. The Viltrumite race looked at itself and asked, what is the absolute peak of what we can produce? And then they made me. From the moment I took my first breath, I was subjected to a training regime whose sole purpose was to maximize raw physical power and create the most capable and dangerous tactical mind amongst my kind. Not one of the most capable, the most capable. There was no second place in that conversation. I rose through the ranks to serve directly under Emperor Argal himself. Military advisor, strategic counsel, the hand that shaped the direction of an empire. I was not given that position. I earned it in ways that would end most beings before they reached the second year of training. Then, Argal was murdered. Thetis, a Viltrumite, one of our own, betrayed and killed the Emperor. The Empire fractured, and then the Scourge virus arrived. An asteroid carrying a biological weapon engineered against our DNA. In less than a year, it tore through Viltrum. Nearly every Viltrumite alive fell to it. Fewer than 50 of us remained. 50, from an empire that had conquered galaxies. I survived. Because, of course I did. The council appointed me Grand Regent. I was tasked with stabilizing what remained, avenging Argal's death, and rebuilding what the virus had nearly erased. Most rulers inherit power at the peak of their civilization. I inherited a dying empire with 50 soldiers and a universe full of enemies who thought we were finished. They were wrong. I staged every major phase of Viltrum's survival. The purge, the expansion, the search for genetic solutions to rebuild our numbers. Thousands of years of decisions, every single one designed to ensure that this empire did not just survive, but dominate. I carry Argal's skull with me still, not out of grief, as a reminder of what happens when an empire loses its discipline. I will not make that mistake. I keep it as a warning to myself as much as anyone else. Empires fall when their leaders go soft. I have not gone soft, not once, not in thousands of years. So when this man across from me talks about strength, understand what you are comparing him to. Not a warrior who found power, not a hero who was chosen, a being who was engineered, trained, tested, and forged specifically to be the last thing standing in any room he enters. That is who I am. Now let us talk about what I can do. You think stopping a train is impressive? Moving a building? My soldiers, Mark Grayson, Nolan, Thetis, destroyed our home world, Viltrum, a planet of extraordinary density and mass. They flew through its core and shattered it from the inside out. Those three were at absolute peak exertion when they did it, every last reserve spent. And then I arrived. I took all three of them simultaneously. I ripped them apart with my bare hands like they were made of paper. Not because I had to strain, because that is simply what I am. Let me tell you about Battle Beast, a creature built for nothing but carnage. We met on the surface of Thraxa and we fought. Not for minutes, not for hours, for days. We tore apart the surface of an entire planet with our bare hands. My arms were sliced open, my stomach was ripped into, and I was punctured. And I did not stop. I did not slow down. I sustained peak combat output for 72 hours while my body was being destroyed piece by piece. And let me tell you something about what a Viltrumite punch actually is.
When I drew back my fist against Nolan, before I even made contact, the acceleration of my arm through the air created a localized pressure vacuum. Nolan was pulled toward me before I hit him, not by gravity, not by a weapon, by the sheer atmospheric displacement of my wind-up. Speed? Space Racer fires beams that track and keep pace with Viltrumites moving at FTL speeds. I danced around them in open combat. I have blitzed warriors, multiple warriors simultaneously, who move hundreds of millions of times faster than light before a single one of them could register a thought. Not a reaction, not a dodge, a blitz, complete and total. Durability? I have fought through the sun's corona, 2 million degrees of heat. I have stood within the sun's outer layers and continued fighting. Dinosaurus, a creature that crushed nuclear-level armor with its jaws and shattered its teeth on planetary tier beings, broke every tooth in its skull on my skin, without drawing a single drop of blood. This man across from me fights to protect people. That is a weakness, not a virtue. I fight because I was made to be the last one standing. He has never faced someone who cannot be reasoned with, cannot be inspired, and has absolutely nothing left to prove. I am not a villain in his story. I am the ending.
72 hours? With your stomach open? Fighting? On a planet? I need a second. And the punch thing, so what you're telling me is you threw a mini Kamehameha at the man before you even just from the wind-up? Ho, Clark, the floor is yours, but the bar just got set somewhere in another solar system.
Thragg speaks of conquest and blood like they're achievements. He speaks of destroying civilizations like it's a resume. I don't fight to rule. I fight because there are people alive right now who need someone between them and whatever's coming. That's not weakness. That's the only reason any of this matters. He mentions his soldiers shattering a planet at peak exertion. Noted. I've caught the Watchtower space station falling at full orbital re-entry velocity, that's roughly 191,000 miles per hour, and stopped it cleanly in freefall. I've redirected continent-killing asteroids with my hands. And when I've had to reach, in the All-Star Superman animated film, I lifted 200 quintillion tons with one arm. That wasn't a peak effort, that was a warm-up. Atlas, a being whose entire existence is holding up the weight of the world, I broke his arm. You talk about the sun, Thragg. I don't fight in the corona. I work in the core. 250 billion atmospheres of pressure. I walk through it the same way you walk through a room. That radiation doesn't damage me. It feeds me. The longer this fight goes, the worse it gets for you. Speed. I've flown to Alpha Centauri and back in the time it takes a person to shower. I've reacted to electrical attacks moving at speeds that eclipse human comprehension. I've outrun objects moving 3 times the speed of light without pushing myself. My brain processes information at speeds that make the concept of blitzing me an extremely ambitious plan. And my heat vision, it's not a weapon I spray around. I used it with surgical precision to lobotomize Doomsday, a creature that tanks nuclear-scale explosions through his skull at range without missing in under a second. I've melted advanced alien metals that your physics can't describe, stellar energy output, mini suns from my face. You have thousands of years of combat experience, Thragg. I respect that, but you have never fought someone who literally cannot be broken by pain. You've never fought someone who survived the agony matrix, infinite agony, described as the worst pain imaginable, multiplied by 1,000, running forever, and kept standing. You ruled an empire for thousands of years. You know what I was doing for thousands of years? Not existing yet, and I still have better numbers. You fight for dominance. I fight for everyone else. And that difference, that's the whole fight.
Okay. This is what Fiction Court exists for. We've heard the cases. Now we look at the receipts. Lights down, math up. Let's start with strength. Thragg, your Viltrumite chain is genuinely terrifying. Destroying planet Viltrum is calculated at 4.12 zetatons of TNT. That is small planet-level force, and we are not dismissing that. But we have to be rigorous. That feat required 3 Viltrumites working together at peak exertion, plus Space Race's Infinity Ray. Even crediting Thragg fully for overpowering all 3 of them afterward, look at what Clark just said he does for a warm-up. 200 quintillion tons, one arm, from the All-Star Superman animated film. Now, let's put that in real perspective. The Earth weighs approximately 6.66 trillion tons. Running that conversion properly, Superman's casual warm-up lift is equivalent to roughly 30,000 planet Earths moved with one arm. 30,000 Earths before his morning coffee. He is operating on a scale that doesn't just clear Thragg, it clears the entire Viltrumite race's collective best day. Strength goes to Superman. It's not particularly close. And before we leave strength, let's talk about what Thragg's punch actually does to the air around it. When he wound up against Nolan, his fist accelerated fast enough to create extreme pressure gradients and shockwaves that pulled Nolan forward before impact. The closest real-world analog is Bernoulli's principle, where velocity increases, pressure decreases. At a conservative Mach 10 wind-up speed, the pressure differential calculates to roughly 70 atmospheres, equivalent to being 700 meters underwater. For context, the force of the actual punch, estimating Nolan's launch velocity at asteroid re-entry speed, around 11 kilometers per second, comes out to approximately 110 meganewtons of impact force. That is 59 times more powerful than a space shuttle main engine, fired from his fist. Now, while that may be an impressive feat, Superman still clears the strength category, but Thragg deserved that context before we moved on. Speed. Thragg, your scaling from Omni-Man's calculated travel feats puts you at approximately 130 million times the speed of light. That number is staggering. The All-Star Superman animated film's Alpha Centauri run, 8.74 light years in 10 minutes, comes out to 460,000 times the speed of light. Now, yes, raw travel speed, Thragg has that round, but combat and reaction speed is where this flips. And that's just All-Star. In the DCAU, Superman has reacted to electrical attacks at speeds beyond human measurement. He's outrun objects at 3x FTL. And critically, at the speed Superman travels, his brain is processing the universe at a rate that Thragg's travel speed advantage doesn't translate into a clean blitz. Thragg has faster raw travel. Superman has superior reaction processing. This round is genuinely close. Durability. Thragg, you survived the sun's outer layers and corona. That earns respect. The sun radiates 3.8 times 10 to the power of 26 watts of energy, and you held up in that environment long enough to keep fighting. But Clark works in the core, 250 billion atmospheres of pressure. The environment that would eventually destroy Thragg's smart atoms is Superman's charging station. This isn't just durability gap, it's a fundamental mismatch in what these bodies are built to handle. Heat vision. In the DCAU, Superman's beam melted advanced alien metal in under a second, roughly 85 gigawatts of thermal output, 5% of the entire Earth's electrical generating capacity fired from his eyes in a single glance. The All-Star Superman animated film scales that to stellar energy output, many suns from his face. Thragg, you have no counter to this. None. Your Viltrumite smart atoms have a known limit with heat. Prolonged exposure breaks down your atomic bonds. Superman can apply that from a distance before you close the gap. And finally, combat IQ. Thragg, you have millennia of experience. You are the superior martial artist, full stop. In a straight hand-to-hand brawl with no other variables, that matters enormously. But it doesn't matter how refined your technique is when the man you're hitting can work inside a star. It doesn't matter how fast you close distance when the man you're chasing has superior reaction processing and can cook you from range before you arrive. And it doesn't matter how long you can fight through pain when your opponent survived the agony matrix, infinite, multiplied pain, running forever, and didn't go down. Here is the bottom line. Thragg is the greatest warrior his universe has ever produced. That is not a small thing. But Superman, at his animated composite best, is operating on a scale the Invincible universe was simply not built to contain. The verdict is final. Superman wins. Now, look, before the Thragg fans come for my channel, let me be real with you. Candidly, this was never really a fair matchup. The only reason it felt like a conversation at all is the raw brutality and goriness of the Invincible universe, which sits in sharp contrast to Superman's PG-13 animation world and creates an illusion that Thragg was operating on a higher level. He wasn't. He is a genuinely terrifying character and will win most matchups across fiction, but not against Superman, not in any timeline, not in any verse. So, Thragg fans, your guy isn't cooked. He's just the wrong matchup today. Superman fans, take your W. But be humble about it, because wins against Thragg is not nothing. Drop your next matchup in the comments. I'm the host, and this is Fiction Court. Court is adjourned. See ya.